So I keep noticing with alcohol markers, there's such a huge range in price points, and I'm trying desperately to get to the bottom of why that is. I bought a grayscale pack of Copics, 5 colored grays in the pack, and then a multi-liner. That cost $38, so that's $6.33 per marker. And then I found this grayscale set at my local Five and Below for $5. So that's less than $1 for each one. Let's test them out doing similar projects to try to figure out what is going on with these huge price difference and how do these markers compare. You ready? I'm using more FaceChart inspired art because it's super fun. Let's go. So these are my ones from Five and Below. Let's swatch them all and also talk about design. Well, they saved on labels. There's no words on any of them. So that's smart of them. I like the feel of these. They don't feel cheap actually. Let's check out the nibs. So they have a chisel and a brush, just like Copics. Okay, well, the nib is nice on this one. I discovered last time, my last video, and the nib on the Pro markers I didn't care for, like whatsoever. But these ones feel good. Here, I'll try a chisel. I'm not sure I'm going. The only problem with them not having any labels is I gotta eyeball the actual colors from the cap, which can be challenging sometimes. These have a lovely blue. No, I think this one goes next. These ones have like a lovely little bit, like a Payne's gray. Oh, that's nice and juicy one. The feel of the nibs is very nice. I think this one is next. So for $5, I'm sold. Whoop, this one's super juicy. All right, that's awesome. The nibs feel great. They're not too bendy. They're not too stiff. I don't love that there isn't any markers on them anywhere. So I have to just kind of guess and hope that I have the right one open. Now we'll test out the Copics and see how their kind of colors and nibs compare. This is a neutral gray. I also have the grayscale set of the sea grays in what's it called, Copics. These are the neutral set, so they're going to be a little bit different in their tone anyways. I do have to say that for Copic, to include this in their grayscale pack is sort of generous. These retail alone for like $11, so you are getting one for only $6. So that is generous, and I also do like these ones because you can buy the refills, much like you can buy the refills on the Copic markers themselves. But of course, because you're losing a marker, we don't have as many colors actually. All right, I love the gradation of both of them. Anytime you have more though, it's better, but I mean, Copic does sell the whole. So for Copic fans, you're getting 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. Here's, so you can see. And in kind of real life, they come in 0 through 10, and then there's black to kind of complete the whole grayscale set and value scale from white to black. But hello, for how cheap these are, yes, I highly recommend. If you can find these, again, I got these at my local Five and Below. There's Five and Belows in like every town in America. I have no idea overseas if they exist. My guess is probably not. But if you see cheap alcohol markers at your local art store or craft store and you are overseas, do not hesitate to grab them and try them out. These are fantastic already, and I've just swatched them. So let's get to drawing and kind of see how they do in a project. Let's go. I'll also be sharing you some of my best drawing and alcohol marker coloring tips over the course of the next few minutes, so you can be sure to get the most bang out of your buck here on YouTube, although of course YouTube is magically free. So the hardest thing is getting the face shape right. I think I redrew it like 67 times, but honestly, if you feel like you're not getting it out the gate, there's literally no shame in erasing as many times as you need to get it right. So my hot tip number 1 is to just erase and don't worry so much about being perfect. Just erase and take your time to try to get those shapes. My hot tip number 2 is to always use face guidelines. Always, like 100% of the time, make sure you're putting in your vertical. That will keep your everything nice and symmetrical. And you'll notice there, I just erased all the eyes I had drawn completely and redrew them, making sure I had that third oval in the middle. I cannot stress that enough. I thought I was good after drawing 8 million faces. I don't need to draw that oval in the middle to make sure the spacing is correct. But you know what, guys? I really do. Like, I do every time. And that was proof right there. Is the one time I didn't, you know what? The eyes were way too close together. So I had to erase them entirely and start from scratch. Now, had I just put the gosh darn third eye in the middle from the beginning, I wouldn't have had to redraw everything. So I really cannot emphasize that enough. And again, erase, my friends. Don't worry, just erase. It's just so normal and so fine. Another hot tip I have for you is to erase your graphite lines quite a bit before you start coloring with markers. The graphite can really smear a lot, actually. A lot of people blame it on their fine liners, which can definitely be a culprit too. But if you really want to make sure you don't have any smear, I would highly suggest taking an eraser, a really soft eraser. I love the Vanish eraser, and like trying to pick up as many lines of graphite as you can. It just will save you a lot of frustration, because once you've smeared it, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it, and it's all locked under your markers, so you can't get at it to erase it. So it's best to erase it before. Now I'm starting out with my generic super cheapy brand, and I have to say, it felt identical to using my Copic markers, like exactly the same. And so you can see, here's another good tip, is when you're working with markers to use very smooth, super consistent lines, because anytime you go over an area twice, you're going to be twice as dark. So the magic of alcohol markers is their ability to blend, but you can also get into trouble because of that, because when you layer them, they really do actually get darker. So my original plan was to do 2 projects sort of side by side, or do like Copics on one side of the face and generic brand on the other. And then I decided to like say, oh, the heck with it. I'm just going to put them in the same project and see if, just like while I'm like swept up in the threads of creation, if I can feel a difference at all. And you guys, I did not. These were actually like the best Copic alternatives, and they're literally like no name brand. I tried to find them on Amazon, like they don't exist. They're just like this random one-off cheapy version, but it does really help to kind of shore up what my opinions have been becoming over the years, which is that there's so many alternatives to like the name brands in a lot of different art supplies, but especially when it comes to alcohol markers. So isn't that such good news? Yes, it is. So as you can see, this is just, I had the zero shade of the first one, and then this is the N0 of the Copics. And as you can see, you can layer just with 0 to get shading. Like, so if you're really scared, and this is another great hot tip, if you're really scared to add shading to your drawings, just go over your lines and the shaded regions just more than once with the lightest color. You don't even have to switch shades if you don't want to. Like, you can actually accomplish quite a bit of shading by just using the same color again over top of the first layer. So I personally love to challenge myself to kind of get out of ugly phase situations when I'm doing drawings. I kind of like, it's just weirdly, it's like a weird challenge that I enjoy. So layering is your best friend when it comes to alcohol markers. So if all of a sudden you become terrified that the shade that you started drawing with is like way too dark, like I can definitely understand if you're new to drawing with Copics or alcohol markers and you have this, you're probably thinking like, oh my God, what is going on? I'm never going to be able to get this to blend. It's going to look crazy. You might even like, throw your paper out at this point. This is pretty much the start of the ugly phase, especially when you're working with alcohol markers. The ugly phase lasts I feel like longer than it does in other mediums, and I am a multimedia artist, so I can say that for sure. For sure, it's not you. It is the medium, 100%. So my biggest tip and takeaway from this video and sharing my tips with you for coloring and markers is to keep layering. And if you ever get scared, don't forget you can go back to your lighter colors. You don't have to keep layering with darker colors at all if you don't want to. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I was like, ooh, yikes, that shading was a little heavy. I'm going to go to one lighter and see about blending some of this together. And this is also why I don't use, this is another tip for you, I do not use the colorless blender with my alcohol markers. I always use a marker very deliberately to blend that has pigment in it, because it's the pigment that, so what you do is you're like right now, I'm applying a wash almost over the entire face. Okay. But I would never use the colorless blender, because what happens is this ink is now re-wetting and reactivating all the layers underneath. And then it kind of like stirs up the pigments that were laid down before, and it mixes in with the light color pigments that are in my marker. And so it truly blends. Like it's like wet paint on wet paint. It's very powerful. So if you have a colorless blender, you're not mixing any pigments. You're just simply wetting your paint again, which is like no blending, just wetting. Gross. So you really want something very specifically with pigment. That's the whole point, is blending with the pigments together to get them to blend. So I'm using the multi-liner that came with my pack. And actually, full transparency, I already had a whole set of these as it was. I really do like these markers. They're super pricey though, so don't feel like you ever need to buy these, because like everything, I feel like in the art world, there's always alternatives. And I actually need to do a video. I haven't done a video on alternatives to the Copic multi-liners, but there's loads. There really are. So please don't feel like you're missing out on anything. If you're like, oh no, do I need to get that? You really, really don't. And I have some awesome alternatives. I will definitely do a video on that. Here's another alcohol marker tip for you, is that I know that people struggle with their fine liners smearing when they go do the coloring portion of their faces or whatever it is that they're drawing. And so doing the outlining afterwards rather than beforehand is a great way to avoid any unnecessary or unwanted bleeds or blending. So you can absolutely do that. And, even though I did erase a lot of the graphite before I started coloring with alcohol markers, as you can see, there's certainly plenty enough still there that I can very clearly see and then go over when I'm ready to go over that with my fine liners. Another good tip to be aware of when you are working with fine liners and alcohol markers is that if you use fine liners that are water-based and not alcohol-based, you will not have any interaction between the markers and your fine liners. And that's because water and alcohol solutions don't even see each other, so you won't have any weird bleedings. It's a little hot tip for you. So that's why if you use Sharpies, you'll notice there is a lot of bleed, even though Sharpie ultrafine Sharpies are super awesome for fine lining. The downside is that they too are alcohol markers. So they blend. Alcohol markers together will blend what we just talked about, all that pigment and everything blending together. So you want to use fine liners that are not alcohol based. And then that way they won't have any interaction and you won't have any of that unnecessary bleeding sort of mix-haps that can happen. So, by the way, the reference that I'm using is available. It is saved to my Pinterest board, which you can see right there. And I also have a classroom on my art school, which is awesomeartschool.com. And in that classroom, it's called the YouTube and cheat sheet library. I actually have over 500, I think it's 550 YouTube videos that are all in there sorted. And I also have all of my cheat sheets are saved in there too. I have over 30 cheat sheets. It's a little bananas, but I have the references saved in this whole FaceChart art inspired series, I have all of the references for all the girls that I'm doing. This is girl number 4, I believe, 4 or 5. I'm losing track because I love them. I have so many. And so I have them all there right with the references if you need them, just FYI. So this is really fun. So everything, as you can see, the prior layers are sort of fading. So when everything starts fading and I want to punch up the contrast and the makeup and the shading, always refer to your reference photo to help kind of determine how dark you do or do not want to go. So I'm starting to go in with some of my deeper colors now. And again, I'm using my Copics and alternating them very equally with my generic brand alcohol markers to see just how they compare. And yeah, there was awesome. So there's a lot to this mouth. And as you can see, sort of a longer, more laborious process. I started with just the white of the paper, and here I am using the lightest. This is just 0, 0. So again, if you're intimidated or scared to start, just always start with the lightest. Go right in a row. So you can do, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if you have all the Copics. I, of course, was just using these limited sets, so I had to kind of go from 0 to 2, which can always feel a little scary. But if you're working from a reference, it's really helpful because you can sort of just look and see where the little designs are. Are there shapes that are occurring in the lips where the highlights catch? And it's really enjoyable to kind of sit and see if you can kind of recreate what you see. And it's always such good practice to use a reference. It helps you develop your observational skills as well as your drawing skills. But most of drawing is actually learning to practice drawing what you are truly seeing. It's more like drawing is really learning to see rather than learning to draw. So it's such a good check on, really stopping and paying attention to exactly where is it dark, where is it light, and how can you best recreate that on your paper. So I wish I knew who the artist was for that FaceChart art. It was a digital image. I have the uploaded user from Pinterest, but it has 0 information on the artist's information. So I'm so sorry about that. But recreating it really was fun. Now, see, she's still in the ugly phase. Like her shadow on her nose really makes me uncomfortable. But please, please, please don't give up. Just remember that you have to just keep pushing forward. Be patient with yourself. Be nice to yourself. And it's a learning process for everyone, myself included, forever and ever. So this time when you're adding the darkest color is when I think it can safely say that this is the scariest part. Because you're right, you're going from the jump from like 4 to 6 and then 8 can be very scary because 8 is almost a black. It's super dark. So you have to kind of save your darkest darks for your boldest moves. So you can reserve them for your pupil or for the makeup. And this was great. This is only maybe the 3rd time in my life that I've done downturned eyelashes. I highly recommend trying it once in a while. If you haven't, it feels super funny if you're used to doing the same sort of upturn eyelashes all the time. I know I'm like a one-trick pony with my Pentel Pocket brush pen and eyelashes, and this time I didn't allow myself to reach for my favorite drawing tool. It's a little sad, but I really wanted to, challenge myself to see if I could, do my best with the writing and drawing instruments that I had and not just always going to my go-tos, although it was stressful, but it was fun. The jump in her lip, this made me highly uncomfortable. I wish I had access to that in-between color. Again, sometimes the jump in shades just is terrifying. Just remember that it's just a piece of paper. Be nice to yourself. Every drawing is an opportunity to practice, hone your skills, get better, and you cannot get worse with more practice. So just do it already. It's fine. And every single project to this day, without exception, I learned something about my art supplies, about myself. But yeah, just try to keep that sense of fun as you're working. It's really important. And, there's a lot of crazy, serious things going on in the world. And this drawing it's not one of them, my friends. It is not. So if you don't nail it, it's not perfect. Like, who even cares? We're testing out markers, for crying out loud. So it's all good. But I was super excited about, again, just kind of discovering that it's super cool if you can't buy the most expensive art supplies. Like, you can do so much with so little. Even having a limited palette, even having, super cheap markers and only having 4 colors. Like, look what you can create. You can create like super cool masterpieces, you guys. So don't be disheartened if you can't get the very best of the very best. It's all good. And as I've been saying forever, I really think that the alcohol marker pigments inside the markers are like legit the same no matter what brand you're using. So like just grab whatever you can and go for it, especially when it comes to alcohol markers. So again, as you can see, like I'm kind of addicted to layering. Like it's just like never-endingly fun. I did want to add a little bit of zhuzhang to her hair. Another really awesome tip when it comes to coloring with markers in hair is that you just need very little to show the effect that it is hair. So if you notice, I just started with almost like an outline and like 4 strands on each side. And that's it, my friends. And then you can just take a little bit of marker and just color in again, like a few more strands. And like, that's all you have to do. You do not need to render. You don't even need to render like 20% of her hair. You can do less than 20% hair and people get it like, oh, okay, there's hair. And your brain kind of just fills in the rest. It's super cool. This is my favorite flipping part, which is doing the little highlights. So I'm using my paint pen by Posca. And again, it's always a challenge again when when you're working from digital references, because you're like, yeah, I can never do this really, but you just kind of do the best you can. And it's fun. You can do quite a lot, I have to say. So I have my Posca and I'm just dotting along some lovely fun, highlights here and there. I have to say that my chick at the end looked like she's looking down, and I really was a little sad because in the reference, she's really looking at you. But I was like, okay, well, next time I can work on, changing. It was the placement of her pupils and her irises. That is what did that. So now looking back, I know what I did wrong, and I know for next time how to fix it. So there's always a takeaway with every single project. But you see how like few strands there are? But like your brain's like, yeah, I get it. I didn't even have to do this dark part. You would just know hair, right? So I think that's so super cool. I think it would have been really stunning to have a very dark, like neck. If I had drawn her neck and like had that rendered really darkly. But yeah, overall, I'm freaking obsessed. I love face charts. I love YouTube. I love having to make new faces every week. Yeah, and as you can see here, I changed up my line from doing just the straight lines to sort of swirls, and it really actually did help to kind of soften those cheekbones a little bit. So I'm just going to leave you with my last thoughts, and thank you so much for watching. So legit, I cannot tell the difference between the two of those when I'm working, like at all. They're completely interchangeable, totally compatible. Nibs felt exactly the same. Yeah, do not be afraid to pick up some cheapies so that you can play too. If you see me using Copics, know and go with confidence that you can use whatever alcohol markers you can find and create with abandon. Okay, is it with abandon or without abandon? I don't know. I don't even know. Anyways, if you enjoyed this face chart inspired project, check out this playlist for even more fun. I'll see you back soon.